Hey guys, Shane here from Genesis Off-Road, and it's install day. Today we are installing the G-Screen monitoring system in the JL. We're going to show you what comes with the G-Screen monitoring system kit and some considerations for how to get it into the vehicle, whether that's the JL, if you're putting it into the JK or Tundra or anything else. A lot of the steps are going to be the same, so I'll try to point out some of those differences in other vehicles too. So let's talk about what comes with the kit. So just like with our dual battery system, we want our monitoring system to be very easy to install. So everything is pre-wired for you. It's going to come with this wire harness here that's going to plug into the port under the hood on the battery kit. And then this end will plug into our interface module. So this is the brains that's reading the status and all the signals coming off of the smart isolator, and it's sending that data up to the little screen. So you got a 1-inch LCD screen that you can put inside to monitor the battery system. And a couple things I want to show you on the screen. You notice we've got a 1-foot long ribbon cable here, and a couple things you want to see here. If you disconnect this end, the gray connector, from the back of the screen, notice right here we've cut one of these pins off of the back of the screen. And then on the ribbon cable, there's a matching little blanking pin right there. So we put that there so that you can't install the ribbon cable backwards. So that's real important. Make sure you get the right end on there. And then the other end of the ribbon cable, the black end, goes to the black interface module box. So that it just snaps in right there. So that way you can't get it installed backwards. And here's the port where we're going to install the long wire harness. And a couple things, if you look closely on the connector here, notice there's 5 little fingers here, and there's a little gap between the connector and the housing. And if you look real closely, you'll see how those little fingers slide right into the plastic housing right there. That's how that's going to snap in. And that connector is called a friction lock connector, so it just uses friction to hold it in place. So that's how that attaches. So let's take a look at the JL, and we'll see some ideas for where you can put this in here. So, you know, even though the screen is only about 1 square inch, you still want to think about where you want to put this, whether that's in the JL or the JK or any other vehicle that you're installing it into. So we want to have approximately a 1 square inch hole, and there's a little small bezel around here that you're going to pop this into a hole that we're going to cut out. So you want to look at the dash and think about where you want to use it. Now on the JL, the new dash of the Jeep Wrangler is not very flat at all, so there's not a whole lot of options across the dash here. So we found the best spot to put it is right up here over the rear view mirror, right next to where it says passenger airbag. So that's where we're going to install our screen today. But we have had some customers that'll put the screen down here beside your right knee on the dash. You can put it over here. We've also had some customers put it right in front of the parking brake handle. You can put it right there, but I don't personally like that spot just because you got your drinks here. You know, we don't want to risk splashing it. But that's what you want to think about is just where's a good spot to put that. On the JK, on the Jeep JK, on the A-pillar, right in the middle of the A-pillar is a good spot, but on the JL, you've got this big handle here in the way. But on the JK, that's a great spot there, or down here on the dash, in the little corner of the speaker, or on the earlier JKs, you can put it right above the speaker. And then on the Toyota Tundra and the 4Runner, there's a spot right by your left knee, right beside the steering wheel. That's a good spot on the Tundra and 4Runner. But today we're going to be installing this up here above the rear view mirror. So let's get started by taking a look under the hood first, and we'll run the long cable to get it inside. All right, so now we're under the hood of the JL, and the process is the same on the JL and the Gladiator. So here on our dual battery system, you'll notice we have a port built into the kit right over here. You'll pop this little dust cap off of there. And if you look closely at the end of this connector, you'll notice it's keyed. It can only go on there one direction from that little divot right there. So that's going to go on this direction, and when we push that cable on there, the collar is going to rotate until it snaps in place like that, and then we give it about a 90-degree twist lock, and that will twist until it snaps like that. So you only have to turn this collar about 90 degrees. So that's how you connect this end of the cable to the battery kit. But to get started, we don't want that long wire harness to be hot with battery voltage on it. So we're going to leave this disconnected for the moment. We're just going to leave this right here for the moment. We're going to route this cable behind the engine cover, and over here I'll show you where we get through the firewall. Let's see. So I'm bringing the cable behind the bracket for the fluid bottle over the top of the brake booster. And if you look right down here, there's a large black rubber grommet in the firewall. And we've already got this cable running through that big rubber grommet there. It's real easy to get it through there. You can take a little razor blade and put a small slice on that rubber grommet and just poke that connector right through there. And then I'll show you on the inside where that comes out in the footwell. All right, so we've got the cable poked through the rubber grommet, and we'll reach back in here. And right up in here, you can be able to grab the cable and pull all the slack out. And that's way up in there. And then to get the rest of this cable all the way up the A-pillar and over to the rear view mirror, we want to take the shortest path possible to get up there. So you're going to need to kind of stick your head down in the footwell area and take a look in there, and you'll be able to see that we want to take the shortest path possible to get up the A-pillar. Now we're going to kind of work the cable all the way up here. We're going to take off one panel at a time, and I'll show you how to get the cable back behind here. So we'll start with popping off this little trim piece off the side of the dash. Use a little screwdriver or some kind of a pry tool and pop this loose right here. There we go. So most of these panels are just held in place with these little clips, so it'll just pop off. And here's the little clips that you're working with. They just snap in place, so there's no hardware that holds that on there. All right, so now we're going to route our cable. We're going to pop off this cover that covers up the door latches. I'll pop that off of there, and you can see a little better. Now we're going to route right up through here, and I'm going to go behind this connector here for all the door electronics to take the shortest path we can. Right through there. Pull all that slack out. And now we can tuck it behind this dash panel and right up through here. And you notice we're kind of wedging it between the dash panel and the body to get it way up in there like that. All right. Now we can come up the dash, and we're going to take this piece off, the handle off the A-pillar next, and I'll show you how to do that. So on my Jeep, I've got one of the Carolina Metal Masters little ram ball mounts on here. So I'm just going to remove that real quick, take that off so that I can get to the hardware and loosen up this ram ball mount and take that off. And then take the bolt out of there. There's that piece from Carolina Metal Masters. Now, if your Jeep doesn't have that, you're just going to use a 10 millimeter socket to pull those bolts out. And you'll pop these little covers off to get access to that bolt with a small pry tool. Those just pop right off. And inside of here is a 10 millimeter bolt. And then this handle here, you'll just pull it loose and pop the clips out like that. So all we really want to do is get this back enough to get the cable back behind here. You know, you don't necessarily have to pull this whole piece out of there. So we're just going to route this cable up, tuck it behind the dash piece right there, and we'll kind of pull this back and tuck it right up in there. And we'll just stop right there for the moment. And now I'll show you how to pull down this plastic trim over the windshield. All right, so now we're gonna pull down the plastic trim over the top of the windshield. So it's easiest to kind of start here in the middle. Again, this is just held in place by several of those little spring-loaded clips. So kind of grab that and pull that down a little bit all the way across. And move the visor out of the way. And right up here you can see those little clips that go in these holes here. So those are pretty easy to remove. So again, all we're trying to do is get the wire routed back behind there. So move your visor around out of your way a little bit. Work this cable over this way to get behind that plastic trim. Pull that piece down there. And again, you're just taking the shortest route all the way over here to the rear view mirror. Now let's pull this around front where we can see it. Okay, now we got our cable up here, so that's good enough for the moment. So if you want to, you can go ahead and put all this back together. So we'll just snap this back in place and put the bolt back in there, our 10mm bolt. Hold that in place, and then this side of the dash will just pop right back on. And the little door hardware cover snaps back on right there. Okay, so now that we got the windshield down, we've got access to the space behind here. One thing that you want to pay attention to, real important, there's a bracket right here. This is used for securing your hardtop. This is a lot easier to do if you go ahead and remove your freedom panels or pull the soft top back, so you have access here. But this is the little bracket that you have the latch for your hardtop that turns and secures the hardtop in place. We want to get the screen into a position where when we push this back up here, it's not going to interfere and bump against this bracket. So that's one important thing that we want to pay attention to. So let's grab the screen. And what do I do with the screen? And I'm going to go get a sticker. I forgot the sticker. Okay, so now we're ready to get the screen in position and mark the hole to cut out. So the kit is going to come with this little sticker template right here. The outline, the square outline, is where you're going to score that with a razor blade to give you a mark to cut out to pop the screen in there. So you'll just peel this sticker off and put that in place where you want to mount the screen. So if you look back behind here, if you look back behind this trim piece, you'll notice that there's a little bit of inner support structure back here that we're going to need to trim away just a little bit. So you're going to want to look back here first before you start cutting anything. And what I like to do is just kind of hold the screen up here and kind of visualize where that's going to go. And if you're holding the screen where it says pin 1, the ribbon cable is going to be on the right hand side when the screen is in the correct orientation. So with the screen in this orientation, we're going to look back behind here and make sure that we get it in the right spot, so when we push this back up, the ribbon cable connector doesn't bump into this bracket. So that's what we'll do. We'll climb up here, climb up in your seat, and find a good spot for that. Okay, now from looking down inside of here from the top, you'll notice we've got some wire harnesses that are clipped in here. We got a little bit of tape holding that in place. Right here is where we're trying to get to. We're going to move some of this tape out of the way. Just pull that back out of the way, and you'll notice that it looks like Jeep left us a perfect spot right here. But if you see some of this inner support structure like this, we're going to need to trim this back just a little bit with a razor blade. It's pretty easy. Some people want to use a Dremel. I don't really like to use a Dremel or a rotary cutting tool on plastic because it melts it and it's just kind of hard to work with. But if you can pop that out of there, you can do that. Or if you need to use a razor blade and cut that support structure back out of the way, that'll make it a lot easier. So I'm going to take a razor blade and just cut a lot of this support structure back out of here. Like right through here. Like that. See that piece we cut there? And we're just going to cut it right over here to get that whole section out of the way. All right, there's the piece that we cut out of the way. It's real easy. Now that's probably enough room. When you get in here, you may need to trim this back a little bit more. Again, it depends on where the screen's going to line up. So let's grab our screen, and you can kind of visualize if it's right about here. Let's kind of gently push this back up, and we'll get this harness out of the way. Move that wire harness back out of our way a little bit. So when this comes up, we want this ribbon cable connector to clear that bracket. So let's go kind of over this way, and we can kind of see that that's going to clear right about there. So over this way a good bit. You can kind of see down in there. And I might go ahead and just trim this back just a little bit more to give me a little bit more space in there. So I'm just going to cut from way back here so it's out of the way. Move around a little bit. Okay. There we go. Cut that right there. And I'm going to slice it right down here. Just like that. Now that'll kind of pry back. And that should be back enough out of our way. Now, you can kind of see again if we set the screen here, and then if we kind of put this panel back in place with these clips lined up, now you can see that the ribbon cable is going to clear that bracket. That looks pretty good. So I like it more this way. All right. So now that we see what that's going to look like, let's come back under here. And that looks like it's going to line up right about like this on the bottom side. So we'll take our little sticker. Come under this way. Okay. So now from looking at the top and looking at the bottom, we can tell that we're lined up right about here, something like this, right about there. So I'm going to take my little sticker template, and I'm going to put it right about there on that flat spot. And I can still see this bracket right here. So I'm going to put it right about there. Looks good. Okay. So again, this is just to give me a line to score with my razor blade. Where'd my razor blade go? All right, I'm gonna kind of hold that sticker from shifting around on me. Get that nice and straight. And I'm gonna score that line. There. We'll score the top. And I'm not trying to cut through here right now. I'm just trying to make a mark so that I can see the outline of it. So then we'll pull the sticker out of the way. If you want to just kind of poke at it a little bit, poke the corner. That sticker doesn't stick to that plastic very well. And then we'll kind of mark this bottom line like this. And here's my corner right there. Now we can move that sticker out of the way. And that's probably really hard to see on the camera, but I can see it pretty clearly in here. I can see real clearly the scratch marks on that. So now I'll just take my knife, my razor blade, and real slowly
go over that. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it just yet. And I'll draw this line. And I'm just barely scratching it. I'm not trying to dig into it yet. And we'll go across this top. Now, if you don't feel confident enough with your hand, keeping your hand nice and still, you know, just take your time, or you can even use a straight edge to cut that line straight if you need to. And then I'll just kind of go over this a few times. I'm getting deeper and deeper each time. I'm not bearing down on it too much. I'm going real slow on this just to be careful with it. Kind of rock my razor blade back and forth, and I can get it real close to that corner. All right, there we go. Yeah, so that side's not real straight, so I'll just take the razor blade and kind of straighten that up just a little. And we'll try a first test fit. Where'd our screen go? Here it is. So again, we're gonna have the pin 1 facing up. We'll slide that side in there first. So our top to bottom looks pretty good. And let's see if that'll pop in there. Hey, got it in there the first try. So if yours fits a little bit tight, just take your razor blade and just kind of slowly shave thin layers off until it'll fit in there. Also, you know, if you're not quite as careful, some people call it clumsy, that's okay. But if you cut this hole just a little bit too big, you know, don't stress it too much. It's all black up here and you got a black bezel, so if your opening is just a little bit bigger than the bezel, it's probably not noticeable, but we have had some customers, you know, that accidentally cut that hole a little bit too big. So what you could do if you need to is, we've had a couple customers take a piece of thin aluminum and have that cut out to the opening of the screen, and then make like a little bit wider bezel to put behind our bezel, and that'll just kind of cover up any boo-boos. All right, now let's make sure we're gonna be able to close that up. So now you see we're kind of getting into that little plastic piece that was left over right there. But when we bring this up, we're clearing, yeah, that looks good. We're clearing that bracket now. Okay, so now let's talk about the interface module. Okay, so now we got to get this interface module tucked in behind here. This can be a little bit tricky because there's not a lot of room to work with. What I've found is if you take this cable and bring it straight across over here, there's a little spot over this way where we can lay the interface module down in here, where the cable will go nice and straight right into it. So let's go ahead and connect that in there like that, and just lay that right there, and we'll kind of groom this cable, bend this cable where it clears everything. I got an extra inch of slack here, so I'm just gonna kind of bend that cable. I want this connector going nice and straight into our interface module. If it's pulling one way or the other, you might see the cable get pulled sideways. And if this happens, if the cable gets pulled sideways like this, then those pins on either side may not be making a good connection, and the screen wouldn't power up. So if you get done and the screen doesn't turn on, then that means this cable is probably pulled sideways. So if you want to try to prevent that, you could put a drop of hot glue there, or some people will put a rubber band around there. But just try to be careful with that and keep that nice and straight. Then we'll take our ribbon cable and bring it back over to the screen. And again, watch your little blanking pin here. That'll line up with the cut pin on the screen. And we'll put that like that. There we go. All right, now our ribbon cable
is fully seated. Okay, at this point, before we go and snap everything back up in place, let's go back under the hood, plug it in under the hood now that all of our connections are done, and we'll power it up and just make sure everything looks good. Okay. So once again, look for the little keyed spot that goes to the bottom. Plug the connector all the way in and rotate this until it slides in and rotate about 90 degrees. And you'll feel it latch into place. And that's all there is to it. Okay, let's check the screen. Okay. Oh boy, I almost knocked it over. Okay, now we can see the screen is powered up. It's showing our main battery voltage, auxiliary battery voltage, boost, and the software version. All right, there we go. So if you've got anything interfering or bumping back there, you know, just kind of move some of the interface module into position, make sure it's not getting pinched or bumping anything else. And that's what it should look like when it's all put back together. Just a couple of those little clips. And we can see our cable right here. I'll just kind of push this back that way just a little bit so that cable's not visible, like that. Visor goes back over here. Put all of our little panel clips back in place. Make sure you got everything secured, all these panels back in place, and that's all there is to it. So if you're doing this on any other vehicle, the process is exactly the same. You're just running the long harness through the firewall up to the interface module, wherever you want to put it. On the JK or on especially the Toyota vehicles, back behind the dash is a big open air void. So that little black interface module box, it may be kind of flopping around back there. So what I like to do is take a couple piece of sticky Velcro, put on the back of that interface module, and find a place under the dash where you can secure that interface module, just so it's not flopping around. But that's really all there is to it to install on the G-Screen. I hope you found this helpful. If you want to know more about the G-Screen, how it works, what you can do with it, how it's useful, go watch our other video that'll walk you through the whole overview of the G-Screen. Hey, I hope that video helped you out. If it was helpful to you, please hit the subscribe button and like this video. That really does help us out. If you have any questions, please leave us a comment in the comment section down below or send us an email. And remember, it all starts with power.